We are the podcast that brings a wide variety of guests to talk about a bunch of diverse topics. Want to help make you, as a small business, solopreneur, entrepreneur, help make you successful, maybe bring some things to your attention you haven't thought about, and then also provide some guidance and some professionals that can help you with things that maybe you know that you need to work on a little bit. So today, we've got an awesome guest with us, Randi Roberts. She is an MBA PCC, is the president of Corlin Roberts Coaching, LLC, and founder of Fulfilling Career, Happy Life. I don't know, I didn't want to run all that together, but Career Happy Life Community. Randi is an executive and career life coach, helping people love their work as they achieve their goals. Randi, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to be with us.
My pleasure to be with you, Roy. Thanks for
Yeah.
inviting me.
So, kind of how did you, how have you found yourself in this? I know that you had an executive career in pharmaceuticals and you've kind of made that transition to coaching. Tell us a little bit about your background and how this came about.
Sure, happy to. Yeah, you're right. My first career, as I refer to it now, was in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
I had pretty much every job on the commercial side, so sales and marketing, starting as a sales rep, working my way up through sales training, marketing, and then got into leading business units in the U.S. market. And the biggest jobs I had were at the VP level at a big pharma company, always focused on the U.S. market. But I really loved the opportunity to bring together sales and marketing, because I think there's a lot of misses between those two functions.
Oh
So
my gosh.
that was my goal, and I got there and loved it. But the interesting thing, or it was actually a difficult thing for me, but looking back on it, pretty meaningful, was I have always known that I need to do some good while I'm doing well. I need to be attached to a mission
Yeah.
and know that my work makes a difference. And that's one of the things that I really loved about pharmaceuticals was the deep knowledge that my work led to um, uh, positive outcomes for patients. It
Yeah.
made a difference in patients' lives. And so, and fortunately, I was able to do well while I was doing that. And so it really motivated me in the way that I need. Um, but then after, it was 28 years or so,
Yeah.
it felt like I woke up one day and it just wasn't doing it for me
Yeah.
anymore. I had gotten so high up in a big bureaucratic organization that I was very internally focused. A lot of my time, most of my time, was spent um, setting the course for my team, getting resources within the organization, making sure that we were allocating our time appropriately. But it was so much of getting internal alignment
Yeah.
between different stakeholders in the company that I just didn't feel close enough to the patient anymore.
Yeah.
And it just didn't feel like home.
Yeah.
So I thought about, you know, I've worked for all these years to build my skills, to build my knowledge in business. I got my MBA, all of these things. I didn't want to walk away from that, but I knew I needed to do it, to use it in a different way.
Yeah.
And I had always thought that being an executive coach was going to be my next career. And I really feel like this is I'm doing the work I'm meant to be doing at this point in my life.
Yeah.
I'm able to use everything that I've learned in business and in leadership and sort of pivot on that. It's not walking away from it. It's taking a different twist on it
Yeah.
and using it now to helping other people achieve their goals. So
Yeah.
again, I feel like I'm doing some good. I have amazing clients. I'm home again.
Yeah.
So I know I'm in the right place.
Yeah, and that's an important feeling because, and I think it's something I learned. I went to work, when I was younger at a company that everybody stayed for 30 years till they retired. And, I was one of the first that I knew that kind of broke out of that and went and did something different. Glad I did. But, you kind of have to look for that. We go through these cycles and we get put into positions. And like you said, if we don't feel like we're doing good as we are, working, it makes it difficult. And so I think kudos to you for being in touch with yourself and being able to make that. But, I just challenge a lot of other people, and it's executive all the way down to the frontline workers, is if you're not in a place where you really feel like you're making a difference, find it, because having that passion, it tends to make you get out of bed a lot easier in the morning time.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. And I have that conversation so often
Yeah.
with my clients. And it's interesting because when I first started went out to do executive coaching, I thought my focus was going to be helping people get to the C-suite or helping people get to the VP level. Because I've been with big pharma, I've also been the chief commercial officer for a small startup. I've had two of my own businesses. So I really thought that's what I was going to help people do, is
Yeah.
get to the next level. And I love that work, and I will always do that work. But what I've learned from my clients over the last couple of years is there is this huge need for people to love their work while they achieve their goals.
Right.
And so I have this conversation with people all the time. I developed a career satisfaction assessment that's available on my website, and it really digs into a bit, or has the people taking the assessment dig in a little bit to what I identified as 8 pillars important for career satisfaction. And one of them is making a difference.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I found, Roy, is once you sort of experience that, you might be in a position where everything's going great and you're working as hard as you could work, but you're energized by it. And then all of a sudden it feels like you wake up and you're exhausted by it, and
Yeah.
it's no longer filling your tank.
Right.
And once you start digging into what is missing that used to be there, it's tough, because once you know something, you can't unknow something.
Yeah.
And when you realize that something's missing, you got to go after it.
Yeah.
And that's the work that I just love to do.
Yeah, we had a guy
So
here in
yeah,
town locally that he was a commodities trader doing very well. I think he had a little health event, and now what he's doing, he's a mural painter. Mural painter. So anyway, but
wow,
they interviewed him and did a nice story on him, and he was just saying that the money is not anywhere near what I was making, but I'm
yeah,
happy. And so I think that
yeah,
it's been a good shift over, I don't know, the last 10, 20, 30 years. We're kind of moving toward people realizing that in order to have real happiness, you have to be fulfilled and have a passion, no matter what it is, whether you're working
exactly.
at a not-for-profit, or whether you're a chief executive officer somewhere. Everybody gets it different, but you got to really do some self-evaluation to see where that is for you. If not,
Yeah,
obtaining the next promotion or the next pay raise or the next stock options, it's a hollow victory after some point. You just have to, I don't know. But I feel like we see this more and more. I don't know if if you're experiencing it with the people that you work with, that it just seems to be kind of a growing trend.
I absolutely see it in
Yeah.
the people that I work with. And that's the whole point of my Fulfilling Career Happy Life
Yeah.
initiative,
Yeah.
is it is possible. And once you start looking for it, you can't, like I said, once you know something, you can't unknow it. Once you start that search, you got to keep going with it. And it's one of the things that's really interesting is some of my clients will come to me because they're feeling like maybe they want to make a career change, or they might be blocked, uh, between here and the level that they're trying to get to. They're
Right.
thinking about making a change, and on the surface, it might seem like what we're going to focus on is, would this marketing director job be better for me, or would I be happier in a sales position, and whatever that looks like. But it's amazing how we really spend a lot of time doing some of that inner work
Yeah.
to figure out what it is that's going um, to satisfy you on those different dimensions of career satisfaction and fulfillment.
Yeah.
And it it's amazing to me. I'm so in awe of my clients, because it doesn't take them that long sometimes to figure out, where that sweet spot is for them. And for some people, that means making some shifts in their focus or their balance or whatever, right where they are. Not
Right.
all of my clients have to make a big change, but some do.
Yeah.
Some leave where they are and make a major change. But it is so fulfilling to watch them dig into that and find a place
Yeah.
that's like, that's the fulfillment for me,
Yeah.
is watching them find it and being a small part of that. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And I think, it's something that hit me. Okay, well, when I first started my career, I was with a major utility. So the first day I walked in, I mean, I'm 19, 20 years old, and I bounce into this office, and the guy introduces himself, tells me his name, and he says, this is no lie. He says, "Hi, I'm so and so. I've got 7 years, 4 months, and 12 days left till I can retire." And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh, okay. And so I didn't really get it at the time. I was so young and I didn't get it. But, as I kind of worked through this, it's the golden handcuff rule. And, it's like trying to stay to get that retirement. And so we had a new EAP person, Employee Assistance Committee, or let's see, program, Employee Assistance Program. We had a new lady that come in for our division, and so she had all the managers come in one day, and she's giving a talk about this is the only, and she was new to the company. Of course, all of us were lifers. We'd all been there. That was a lot of times our first job, and we'd been there, anywhere from 15 to 30 years. But she said, this is the only place I've ever worked that when people introduce themselves, they tell you how long they have to retirement. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's an amazing mark on the culture. That tells you so much.
Yeah. And it was like an aha moment for me. But, I think that was the biggest thing for me, was that I just allowed myself the permission to change my mind. And it's like, once you start down a path, and it's hard for me because my parents worked at the same places for 35, 40 years. My grandparents, it was very ingrained, but I think that it's okay to give yourself permission to say, you know what, life changes, you change, companies change, everything, the situation changes. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm really not liking this anymore. I want to pursue something different. And, there used to be some stats on this that, my generation, we may change jobs 2 or 3 times. And then now, like coming into the 90s and the 2000s, they were saying that workers will not only change careers, but they will change industries like 7 times across, a wide range. So I think it's good. The worker can be refreshed and renewed. Sometimes I worry about the brain drain with moving. We kind of, by the time you build up a lot of knowledge of the industry and the company and then you leave, it hurts. It can hurt both of you, but sometimes fresh ideas are good for everybody as well.
I think that's right. I think people need to recharge their batteries in whatever way works for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is learning new things. Sometimes it's like, I think about, we talk about different careers and things like that. In my own career, I was with 3 different major pharmaceutical companies, and I had multiple jobs within each.
Yeah.
So some of that is, how do you define it?
Yeah.
But I really encourage people who are, say maybe 5 years or so out of college, get some experience, get 2-3 years experience so that you have that track record, how a company works if you're going to work for a big company. And you have that, people know that you have some longevity and you have a bit of a track record, but then, be willing to make a change.
Yeah.
Go find something that's more exciting to you. This, while you're building your career, this is your life.
Right.
And so it is possible to be energized and excited about your work and know that it has meaning. And that's, you should go after it.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's easy for people to take bigger risks at both ends of their career. Like in the beginning, when they just, they may not have, their expenses may not be as high. They can take a risk financially, and they have so much room to grow in front of them. And then, for those of us who have been smart and done well and invested well, you can also take risks at the other end of your career.
Yeah.
It's just, have faith in yourself. If you know that you're building your skills and you're focused on something that really adds value, have faith in yourself.
Yeah, and that's important because, what I tell younger people is that do things before you have a family, because all of a sudden when you have a wife and a
Yeah.
child that depend on you, and insurance and all of that, it makes the
Yeah.
stakes a lot higher to make a change. And sometimes we are more tempted to stay in that position. Sometimes, well, they say, know the devil, knowing the devil is part of it, or something like that. That even though it's
The
not what
devil
we.
you know
Yeah, yeah,
versus the
yeah. The
devil you
devil.
don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So we make some decisions out of
Yeah.
those places that we normally wouldn't. Which something else I always I've found lately is, I had a guest that he said he was international sales, and he worked some in Latin America, and he had a chance to take like 6 months off, and he went and did some kind of a tour through Africa. And the advice that he got, and he was probably in his late 20s, early 30s, recounting the story, but he said that people said, this is the end of your career, you're killing yourself, just so you know that. And but he was like, yeah, you know what, he had been successful, and he's like, I just decided I was going to take a chance. But he said the
Yeah.
interesting thing, that when he came back from that, when he started putting in applications, he said that people didn't care about his education, and they didn't care about his former work. Everybody wanted to talk about his trip. And I think that's an interesting note to
Yeah.
make to people, is that if you have to be strategic. I say you can't just, it doesn't work for everybody all the time. But I think that if you do that strategically, if you can explain that time off, people are a lot more interested in the other stuff that's going on in your life than just your skills. And those are the other part of that is, I think those are good employers that you probably want to seek out too, that they're more interested in the whole person.
Yeah. I think that's very true.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see. You said a couple things that were really interesting there, which is this guy followed his passion to do something that was really enriching to him and his life, and people found that intriguing.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going for a job and you look just on paper, you look just like everybody else, they're going to go for that thing that's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
They're going to want to know that about you.
Yeah.
Um, but something else you said, Roy, is you talked about it as the story, and I talk to clients about this a lot, which is, um, if you have those strategic reasons for why you've made moves,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't necessarily have to take the conventional path and
Right.
go straight from here to there in the way other people do.
Right.
So it's helpful to think about it up front. How will you communicate this break in your career, or
Yeah.
changing from one industry to the other? People do find that interesting. When I was a VP at a pharma company, I would have a lot of people come and interview with me, and I could see on their resumes, what they had done. I often knew their company. I usually knew somebody who knew them. Like, there were ways of validating what they were saying.
Right.
And what I used to ask them to do is talk to me about how they got from place to place. How did they manage their career? Because that told me a lot about who they are, how
Right.
seriously they took themselves. Were they strategic? How did they apply things about their life?
Yeah.
And it told me so much more about them than going through, what was your accomplishment on this job? And that's important too.
Yeah.
But these other things are what differentiate us.
Yeah, and it's so important. I'll step back and say, talk to kids that are still in college about this a lot. Is um, for the parents' sake, you need to make good grades. You need to pass. You need to be able to get out in a decent amount of time, because like my sister. I think she
Because you
was.
got to get off the payroll.
Yeah, it's like we always joke about my sister. She went to a major university here in the state, and it's like the president of the university, I think he called my mom and said, she's taking everything in the catalog. We're going to have to, give her a gold retirement ring, and she's going to have to move on. She is a professional student for a long time. But anyway, is that, well, the grades are important, and
I'm sure she's got stories to tell about you.
oh my gosh, yeah, yeah. That's why I don't have her on for a guest. I can protect myself. But
Yep.
is that you need to get out and have those other experiences besides just the college, and that's
Yeah.
what really sets you apart from everybody else, is the volunteer work that you may have done, or the clubs and things like that, the extracurriculars. So it's very important to be well-rounded. Sometimes we get so focused on, well, we just want this resume that if it's a really forward-thinking employer, they're going to want to look way beyond that and see, how does all this tie together, and how you can,
Yeah.
bring some life and help this company out. It's important.
Yeah. Absolutely, it's important. And it's important on a couple of levels. It's important in terms of making yourself most attractive and most marketable. But it's also, this is your life. Do things that you love.
Right.
You know, we can't love everything we do, but we should love at least some of it. And, you can choose activities. For example, there are people who are very passionate about sports, maybe competitive sports. When I was in sales, I used to love to hire competitive athletes
Mm-hmm.
because they had such tenacity and they knew how to work through difficult times and things like that.
Yeah.
There are absolutely ways to take things that you're passionate about
Yeah.
and make them relevant to
Yeah.
whatever job, whatever company you're pursuing.
Yeah.
And you're going to love what you're doing.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I'm going to talk about for a minute that's really not coaching related, but something you said in the very beginning that I don't hear enough, but the marketing and sales working together is such an important aspect, because they've got, in order to enrich our sales, we have to have good marketing. And then I think in order to have good marketing, we have to have good feedback from sales. And, I was on an episode the other day and we were talking that there was a wall, the sales and marketing were operating in silos. And, we were just saying that marketing was doing all these great campaigns, but the people that were talking to the salespeople were not their customers. And it's an outlet. It's kind of an extreme case, but the one that I used is, I said, well, it's kind of like if you sell an adult beverage and marketing is doing an awesome job. They just drove 1,000 people over to sales department, but they all happen to be 12-year-olds. Not, it's not the traffic that you're looking for. And so that is
Right.
where I just feel, when it gets too big, where they silo them and there becomes less communication between the two, I think it is so detrimental to both sides of the equation. Now, I do have to say, as in sales, sometimes we whine and cry that if you sent me 10 good people, I will say, you sent me 9 good people out of 10. I'll be like, well, you sent, this one guy, we kind of seize on that outlier that you might have sent, or it may have been a little tougher to close. So I think it needs to be good, honest feedback. We all have to hold up our end of the bargain, but just let's touch on that for a minute before we get back on the coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's something that I feel strongly about because during my time in pharmaceuticals, I spent almost the same amount of time over on the sales side as in the marketing side.
Yeah.
And I did see huge waste. It's almost like the relay race where you're passing the baton from one runner to the next. And that's where it gets dropped, is between sales and marketing very often. And I tend to think that from a marketing perspective, my mantra for my teams always was, let's do fewer things and do them better.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can be, well, we're doing all these things, and that actually can work against you because sales may not be able to implement it all in that way.
Yeah.
Marketing's got to do an excellent job of listening to sales, but also showing the way in terms of, what's the research that's been done, what's the rationale behind certain things, and giving enough of an explanation so that what they're recommending and resourcing makes sense to the sales team.
Yeah.
So I think in the end, if you can dial the listening way up and align objectives, on the part that's on the part of the senior management of the company, if the objectives are aligned, really to create that win-win, it's an awful lot easier.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We all.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just think we all have to remember at the end of the day, we're all on the same team, because all of a sudden, I see these rifts between them where it's like, marketing is a competitive entity, not competing for dollars, but, I guess for the win, it's like, well, we've done everything. And then sales is like, yeah, but I had to have 4 conversations with that guy before I could close. We want sales wants you to send them the one close where all they do is they just faxed over the paperwork and it was done. So, I do get that, but I just feel like this is in relationships. It's in work. It's within departments. It's
Yeah.
even people within departments. It's the communication. We just have to have rational communication, rational and realistic communication between the two groups in order to make them both function at the highest possible level. There's just no way
Yeah.
around it. And like I said, it's unfortunate because you see, when a company's small, they got one guy, they're doing sales and marketing. And then once this grows, all of a sudden it seems like they drift apart. So I think it's important to really think that process through of how you can structure it where they're not like at each other, but they are working with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's really critical because there's a lot of wasted energy and missed opportunities in that regard. So,
Right.
If it was easy, it would be a problem that had been solved. And
Right.
I've been, in pharmaceuticals, and while I'm not in pharmaceuticals anymore, I do have a lot of clients that are in pharma and other sales or marketing in other industries.
Yeah.
And that problem continues.
Yeah. Well, so let's get back to the coaching for just a minute. What are you seeing right now with your client, your current clients, your new clients? Because I feel like we've had this thing where people maybe they've had to go in business for themselves, or they've had to increase the side hustle in order just to put groceries on the table. There's been so many layoffs and turmoil out there that some respects I feel like people are maybe going to come up against the point to make a decision. Do I continue on this road as an entrepreneur, or do I go ahead and take this job offer? Is any of that manifesting itself already?
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's a huge question, for someone who has a career like mine, where I was with big companies for so many years and now run my own coaching business and
Right.
entrepreneurial position. You see when you're out on your own, the risk is much greater and it's all on you.
Yeah.
So there are times when it's very tempting to go back to a job. And there are times when that's absolutely the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to is really knowing yourself, knowing your priorities, knowing the realities for you. Like you mentioned earlier, there are times when, before you have kids, you can do certain things. And, right now, just take a look at what are the realities of your situation. What are your obligations?
Right.
And then you make the decision that's right for you right now.
Yeah.
And if your dream is to be an entrepreneur and I'll say have to go back, if the right choice for you is to go back to something that's a little safer, for now, that doesn't mean that has to be forever.
Right.
If you're really clear on what the motivation is for you at that time, you could sort of plan ahead.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients will do things like, this is the right thing for me to do for this 3 to 5 year period. But some of the work that I do with my clients, Roy, is about, and these are folks that, maybe they're in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
We'll talk about what do they want their ideal retirement to be.
Right.
And then sort of work back from there of, what do I need to be doing today to set me up for what I want that to look like in 20 years.
Right.
And so, it's bringing that kind of strategic thinking to your own life and to your own career.
Yeah, and it's something I just would talk about because, early in my career, like I said, I went to work for a big company. I thought that was, I was following my mom's footsteps. She worked at the same company. Then it's like, you just kind of go there and you show up every day, and then you wake up at one point and it's like you were so kind of hung up in your job and your life, you really didn't think about the career, the path, where do we need to go, what do we need to do. So, I just challenge everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for a big company, is to really think about taking control of your future as much as you can. Having said that, control is an illusion because nobody would have thought there would have been a thing called COVID, back in 2019. So there are things that we don't control. But I think we can map out a plan where we at least have a little bit of direction that we're going to be working on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And look, this year's been a huge learning opportunity on every level.
yeah,
Um, there was so much that was out of our control this last year, but things are starting to come back. I mean, if you look at, based on where we are right now, more than 50% of the US adult population is vaccinated. I'm starting to see the world starting to spin again.
yeah,
Look, a lot of my clients weren't directly impacted because they have the kinds of jobs that they could do remotely.
right,
But now we're in a position where people are beginning to plan for transitioning back to being in an office,
right,
at least some of the time. And so the dynamics are really shifting in that regard. One of the things that I have found so interesting, an impact of the last year, is people really are thinking about what is best for them, thinking about what's most fulfilling in
yep,
their lives. And a lot of that is the life and death situations that many of us, saw people close to us, or at
right,
least people, in our community space, um, saw a lot of things happen out of our control with jobs going away or things changing. It makes you think. It makes you want to follow that path that is more fulfilling,
yeah,
as well as set up some contingencies for yourself.
yeah,
So I think we all sort of have, if you know what motivates you and you sort of have that North Star for yourself.
yeah.
Um, and for a lot of people, it is knowing that their work makes a difference. That kind of gives you a bit of guidance, but that doesn't mean that it's a direct path between here and there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to take a few twists and turns along the way.
Yeah, and you
So,
mentioned that.
what have you seen go ahead,
Oh no, I was just going to say you mentioned that
go ahead.
the that life and death thing, and I think it's important. I guess me, I'm older, so you think about these things more. But think about, even though we want to make a plan and we want to look at the future, we have to really be happy or try to be happy now or as soon as we can. If we're not, because we can't. We got to just be careful about giving our life away, saying I'll trade the next 5 years and then this is going to happen and then I'll be in a better place, because the unfortunate part is sometimes that 5 years never comes. And it's devastating to talk about, but I just, the older I get, the more I look at every day is just a gift. It's not only a gift to wake up, but it's a gift to be functioning, because, you see
Yeah.
people hurt in accidents. Like we had this I guess it was back in February before we had the big ice storm. We had this craziest accident on one of our freeways that you can imagine. I mean, it was like a 60 or 70 car pileup. There were 18 wheelers that were jumping over
Wow.
cars and crushing them. It was devastating. And I think there were about 6 or 8 people that lost their life in that, and a few others that were permanently crippled. So anyway, you just never know. The trip to work, the trip home, things can happen. And so,
Yeah.
we have to balance with the planning for the future, but also, let's make sure that we're trying to get some of that happiness in our life fulfilling today as
Yeah.
well. So it's hard. There's not
Absolutely.
not easy for sure. But,
No. And it's interesting because that's exactly the conversation I have with a lot of clients. And
yeah,
if they're with big companies, there might be really well established career paths. They pick where they want to go and, what are
yeah,
the steps to get there. And they may be told, okay, for the next 2 years, you need to get this kind of experience in order to do that. Maybe great advice, but that's 2 years of your life
yeah,
that's going on while you're doing what you're told to do.
right.
So it's a bigger decision than just trying to get from here to there.
Yeah.
Um, but it's what makes it
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, we were, and that was part of the catalyst. Not only the EAP manager, when she was talking about that, she just said, "You know what, we're free to go do whatever that." And then the next thing was we were doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions at this time, and so what they were asking us, well, we need you to go to this new acquisition, typically across the country, for 2 years, and then we'll bring you back. Well, luckily I was there at the right time where I saw some people that they sent away, but they never came back. So I was,
Yeah.
that was a thing for me to be like, it's just not worth taking the chance. I had some other options that came up, and so it was a blessing for me. I think it was great. I worked around a lot of good people, learned a lot of good things as a young person, but it was time for me to move on. So anyway,
Yeah.
one thing you mentioned too was remote work. So let me ask you this, and I get your opinion, but also some of the people that you work with is there going to be resistance telling people that we need you to show back up at the office again?
I think it's a mixed bag. I
Is
think absolutely there are people that have absolutely thrived on it. Um, and there are people for whom it's been really difficult. I mean, I run my own business out of my home office. So for me, not a lot changed. But for a lot of folks that were used to doing face to face work, that might have been used to a lot of business travel,
yeah,
to all of a sudden spend all of their time on a screen was a really tough transition. And one of the things that I found really suffered during this time was networking,
yes,
because that's the kind of thing, like if you're at a meeting, sometimes it's the time going into the meeting room and when the meeting's breaking up and you get a little chat with senior leadership or that kind of thing.
yeah,
All of that went away, and so my clients that are in those senior positions, we would work on what could they do to make sure that people stayed engaged and didn't miss a beat.
yeah,
So some of that, I think some people have adapted. I think there are a lot of people that are really looking forward to the opportunity to go back to actually being with others.
yeah,
I don't think that we'll ever go back to the way it was
yeah,
in terms of people being in an office 5 days a week. Um, I think there's going to be a lot more flexibility, which is great
yes,
because there's a lot of jobs that can be done. I mean, many companies did not lose a beat. And
yeah,
in fact, their bottom lines may have improved because they had so much less travel expenses, for example.
right,
So there's a lot of companies that have figured out how they can do it without expensive office space, or at least without so much of it,
yeah,
because people, if they go into the office, maybe it'll be a day or two a week.
yeah,
Um, I think there'll be, I don't see us going back to the kind of business travel that used to happen before.
yeah,
I think that people are going to be a lot more open-minded. And from a company's perspective, you save money moving people around. You open up your opportunities in terms of your talent base.
yeah,
I mean, similar to the way I work, I have always seen my clients either on the phone or on Zoom.
yeah,
And so I'm not limited geographically. I happen to live in New Jersey. I'm not limited geographically to people who I can drive and meet with.
right,
And I think there's a lot of companies that are recognizing their talent pool doesn't have to be located in one place.
yeah,
So it's going to be exciting to see how we carve this new normal out.
yeah.
But it is not going to look the way it did before, in 2019, for example.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I think it opens that talent base up that, we finally learned that we don't all have to be in the same city, which is a good thing. And then the travel,
Right.
and as much as I love to travel, it does, I think it's gotten to where it was wearing me out. And so I'm loving this because, I can talk to 4 or 5 people in a day that it used to take me a lot longer to get there. Now, it's that in person, relationship building and just the feel you get of being in the same room that can be a challenge to try to overcome that, but I feel like there's ways to work around that,
Yeah.
but
And I think, one thing that really works is if you can do the face to face initially when
yeah,
you're getting to know each other. And then once you do know each other, the more remote engagement, if it's on the phone or more likely on a screen,
yeah,
is entirely different because you already know each other.
exactly. Yeah, the well, lost my thought there, but anyway, we'll go. You had brought up earlier that there are 8 pillars that you look at for, is that for career success? Did you say that?
Well, it's something that I've essentially learned from my clients, which
Okay.
I identified 8 pillars of career
Career
satisfaction. And
satisfaction.
that's
Okay.
the assessment that's available on my website that people could take.
Okay. Okay. Can you just hit the high points for those 8 for us right quick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's no real surprises. I mean, we've talked a bit about making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
is one of them. And that looks different to different people. That might be making a difference in the lives of others,
Yeah.
making a difference, knowing that they're making a difference for their company.
Yeah.
So in some way, knowing that what they do matters. A lot of times, the connections are really important. People may not think of this one, but the connections that they have with others. It might be with customers, it might be with peers, it might be with senior leadership, depending on the situation. But those kinds of connections, I mean, for any of us who have left companies, left industries, it's the people you take with you.
Yes.
And those connections are really important. That's how networking is everything these days.
Right.
And so those connections that you take with you, the difference that you make to others, and the help that you give to others and what you get back from them, those things are really, really important. And one of the things that a lot of people don't think about in terms of these pillars of satisfaction, one of them is fun.
Yes.
And that's a consistent theme among my clients. And really, kind of the way I think about that is, look, we all work hard,
Yeah.
right? Is that work, is that experience filling your tank or draining your tank?
Right.
And that's if you're, no matter how hard you're working. I mean, there have been weeks when I remember working so hard, I just didn't think I had any more to give, and I still had energy at the end of the week.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
Yeah.
That's what that is. That's fun. And that makes a big difference between, situations that are really fulfilling and ones that aren't.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of examples for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just going to stop, kind of interrupt you there for a minute, because I find this interesting. Like if me and you were coming on to a business Zoom meeting, before just me saying, okay, I need you to go to tab 4 of spreadsheet number 4. We're going to go over these numbers. It's like, to have that personal, how was your weekend? How's your weekend going? If I know that you have kids, did y'all have a baseball game this week? Having that, the interaction, because what I've noticed in some groups, and I don't know if this is age related or more if it's company culture. I haven't really put my finger on it yet, but there's just no personal interaction. And I've always found, especially when I had people working for me, I need to know who they are. You kind of have to get the feel. How are they doing to stay up with them?
Yeah.
But I just find it, trying to interject a little bit of comedy, a little humor in with all these Zoom meetings. And I find that some people are just like, it's foreign. It's a foreign concept, but I think we've got to do that. We've got to humanize it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have seen that as well. And I think, it can be tricky because humor can be risky, and asking people about their personal lives, like, I would accept that in the way we were just talking about it. You care about me and you want to know about me and you want to make that connection. There are people that aren't comfortable talking about it or whatever. So it's a sensitive line, and you have to, I think what you do is you create the invitation, and if people want to step in, they can.
Yeah.
But make it okay that they don't have to, if they're not comfortable with it.
Right.
But yeah, I think, that kind of thing makes a big difference. And one of the things that I find, people talk about work-life balance, right?
Yeah.
So, and those lines are blurred more than ever now because we're all working where we live.
Right.
I don't think of it as work-life balance. Like, I like that concept. I don't really like the term.
Yeah.
Because it's not work in your life. It's all your life.
Right.
And so I agree with you. I find it really motivating, and most people that I've worked with do as well, to be able to bring some of themselves into their work and not have to feel like it's one or the other. No, it's your life.
Right. Right.
So bravo to you for making that happen.
Yeah. It just, like even emails, instead of just, hey, I need this. It's like, I try to take the time to say, man, I hope your day's going good. Hope you're having a good week, or try to bring up something. If we talked about something not too long ago, just bring it up just to kind of, to humanize it, take a little bit of an effort to do that, because I think it builds relationships when when people know that you really care about them, they are willing to do more for you. It just, I don't know, it just, to me, it
Yeah.
makes the world go round. And that was the way I was brought up,
Yeah.
and I learned this. It's funny how I learned it at an early age. I had a good friend of mine, and we had both just gotten married, but we still played golf and fished and did, stuff together. And he told me one time we were out doing something. He's like, whenever you call the house, I can't think of her name, but he said, instead of just asking for me, maybe you just ask her how it's going with her. She just felt very uh, excluded from the
Left out.
relationship. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
anyway, after that, I was like, you know what, that's a good policy for really everything, is to, just kind of have that conversation. And she was good. Hey, how's your day going? How are the kids? What are y'all doing with this or that? And so anyway, I've kind of carried that message with me for a long time, because people, we need to
Yeah.
make people feel important, not like they're just just another tool that we're trying to use to get something out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the beauty of it is, if you genuinely care about them, you're
Right.
just sincerely expressing that.
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting now, in thinking about your example of your friend, you don't have that opportunity now. If you call your friend, you're calling on their cell phone. Nobody
Never.
else is
I
answering.
never thought
Like
about that.
you never. I heard my daughter's 25. She and her friends were talking. They don't know what it's like to pick up a call that's intended for somebody
Yeah.
else.
I never thought.
You
I,
know,
I just gave away
yeah.
my
So
age, didn't I?
no,
I gave
not at
away
all.
what time frame
But
that happened in.
yeah, no, but I can relate to it.
Yeah.
But it just, when you have those moments and you think about it, it makes it even more important now to make that effort
Yeah.
to include others. And like, it was obvious that your friend, his wife, that her involvement in this friendship was really important to him.
Yeah.
And so you making that effort makes the difference.
Yeah.
What it is? It's knowing, for the people that are in our lives and that are important to us, whether it's our friends or our coworkers, know what's important to them
Right.
and show interest in that.
Yeah.
And it's about being human and bringing your heart to what you
Yeah.
do. And
There's some.
hopefully that's not a big effort for people.
Yeah, and there's something I heard the other day. People used to always say, live by the golden rule, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. But somebody brought
Yeah.
up, and I call it the platinum rule. It's like, do unto others the way they want to be done. Just because I like something or want this doesn't mean everybody that surrounds me. So we need to be in tune enough to try to source that. What is that? What
Yeah.
do people want around us? So
Yeah.
anyway.
It's a great point. And the thing too is, we can't expect others to read our minds.
Yeah.
So sometimes, just like in a personal relationship, in a professional relationship, it's okay to make a request or to make a suggestion or that kind of a thing if there's something that you need that you're not getting.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have that fit with everybody,
Yeah.
but there may be some things you can do to try and improve that a little bit.
Yeah. I know we're running way long. I've just got one more question. Maybe we could just touch on briefly, is the importance of doing more assessment tests on ourselves. Who are we? What do we want out of this? Because
Yeah.
I'm one of these that I like the analytics. I love spreadsheets and numbers and gathering data, but I also like a little bit of that human interaction, the selling. I like to, try to figure out marketing and things like that. But there are some that, they either love spreadsheets and they don't care if they ever had to talk to another human individual. That would suit them fine. There's other people that if they never have to see a spreadsheet again in their life, they would be immensely happy. They want to just talk to people. So kind of tell us a little bit about the
Yeah.
importance of figuring out who we are and what we really need.
Oh, I think it's hugely important. And it's really, there was a time when I thought coaching was about helping people develop specific skills, and that's part of it,
Yeah.
absolutely. But really, where the meat is knowing ourselves a little bit better and
Right.
understanding where that fit is and creating it. So,
Yeah.
for example, some of the assessments that you're talking about, kind of can split you up into introvert or extrovert or those kinds of things. Some of the tools that I use with my clients now, something that I do with almost every client at this point, is a values assessment,
Yeah.
so that you can stop and take inventory of what are the things that are most important to you right now.
Yeah.
And that changes throughout our lives. Like, our core values may not change tremendously, but how they show up and what we need at different times in our lives kind of gets dialed up and down.
Yeah.
And so I'll even do a values assessment with clients. I had a client recently that I worked with for 4 years now. We did it again to see what may have changed in
Yeah.
that interim, because we change. And so it's valuable to sort of stop and take a look at that. So
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in assessments on a lot of different levels. And that's why I have that career satisfaction assessment
Yeah.
that I developed. It's less quantitative. It's really more of a starting point for people to think about what may be missing or what opportunities there may have.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's interested in that, they can find it on my website, which is Randi Roberts, RANDI Roberts.com, under the resources section. So,
Okay.
and Roy, if you check it out yourself, let me know what you think.
Yeah, I definitely will. Randy, thanks so much for giving me so much time. I do appreciate it. Before we get away, what is a tool or a habit? What is something that you use in your daily life that you feel adds a lot of value?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I have a couple of sort of guiding principles, and one that I think of as a tool that really, really does help me is when I start to when my stress level starts to go up about anything. And look, running my own business, there's a lot of things. It's all on me.
Right.
So there's a lot of balls that I need to keep moving in order to continue to be successful. And so when something starts to get stressful, or I find myself getting wrapped up in, around the axle on something, I really do stop and ask myself, is this something that I can control?
Yeah.
Or is this something that I can influence? And if so, then figure out what that action is, and taking an action and moving in some way can really break that stress.
Yeah.
But if the answer is no, it's not in my control, there's nothing I can influence about it, I really do let it go.
Yeah.
Because all that's going to do is create more angst for me,
Right.
and hold me in place where if I could release that, I really can move forward in a way that's more productive. So it didn't happen overnight, but I've gotten pretty good at it.
That's good. Yeah, no, that's definitely something that, we can spend a lot of time and energy fussing over things that we've got no control over, and that just they're going the way they're going to go. So good advice. Good advice. All right, Randy, I know you just said your website, but tell us again, kind of who is your client? Who do you like to work with? How can you help them? And then, of course, give us your website, how to reach you one more time.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. So I have two pieces of business. I do the executive coaching of folks who feel that they have an area of skill development in order to move forward. Love doing that work. But I also do a lot of work with people who maybe are mid-career, who are feeling less motivated for their work than they did. Something's missing that they used to have, or they feel that there's an opportunity for them to be enjoying it more. And so we really do dig into what's missing. That's where that career satisfaction assessment started. And I am happy to offer a complimentary session where I can meet with someone who thinks they may be the right client for me, and we can talk about our backgrounds and see if there's a fit and see where we go from there. And there's no obligation beyond that.
Okay. Awesome.
So if people want to reach me, it's through my website, randiroberts.com. There's a section you can contact me, or you can send me an email directly at Randi, RANDI, at fulfillingcareerhappylife.com.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll be sure and put all that in the show notes as well. Randy, thanks again for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. A lot of great information. Y'all reach out, see how Randy can help you in your career. And, even if you think you're doing good, at least reach out. Maybe you want to, kind of plan a little bit for the future. It never hurts to, always be thinking a little bit ahead as well.
Yeah. It's an investment in ourselves.
Exactly. All right. That's going to do it for another episode of the Business of Business podcast. You can find us, of course, at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. We are on all the major social media platforms, as well as all the podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to, please reach out. I'd be glad to add. All right. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your business.